Welcome to the Project Violet podcast. My name is Daniel Lay.
And I'm Carrie Maselli.
My name always inflects up when I say that. Gotta work
I
on
think it's okay. You got to have some kind of interest or, like intonation, or is it intonate? No,
intonation. It might be
very
my,
tone or something.
I think it's
As
my
long as
Canadian.
you're not a question.
Well, I think it's my Canadian accent coming through again.
Oh, maybe. I never
Yeah.
noticed that with
A?
you.
Yeah. I've lost the A really quick.
Yeah.
But anyway, all
Never
right.
heard you. No, I've never heard you like in all these years.
No, you lose that pretty quick when you move to Texas. Everyone
I
kind
bet.
of calls it out, and then I start saying y'all now every once in a while. So there you go. I'm full Texas now.
You know what's so crazy is that I know this isn't what we're here to talk about, but it's funny. Growing up in the Midwest, I have a very distinct
Hmm.
A sound as well. Well, similar to Canada, I think. And I live now in the South, in Charlotte, in the Charlotte area. And every time I open my mouth, somebody says, "Where are you from?"
Oh,
They ask
interesting.
me because, and I'm thinking, like in my head, of course, I sound
Yeah,
like
yeah, I don't feel like you have an accent, which is
I know I
interesting.
don't either.
Yeah.
But here in the South, I guess I do.
You gotta have that southern drawl. You have to
Right.
start working that
Yes,
in.
that's right. I don't sound like everybody else who's around me, I think is the key.
Uh-huh. There you go.
No, it's funny. Anyway, what are we here to
What are
talk
we talking about?
about?
Yeah, so today we are talking about the theme that we have in our community, which is core values, which is part of the Leading Self
Mhm.
course that we're taking for leadership development. It's been a lot of fun going through those videos and seeing your face, Carrie, and your yeah, just your approach to leadership and your smiling face is always nice to see. But we're talking about core values today, which is something I was looking forward to because it's not something I've thought about it, but I haven't really formalized it yet. And
Sure.
that is actually how I responded. We had a poll that we set out in the community on Monday, and it essentially just said, "How clear are you on your personal core values?"
Mhm.
And there's different responses. Maybe I can read the responses and then you
Please.
can jump in.
Yeah.
So the first option was very clear. I can name them easily. Second option was somewhat clear. I have a general idea. Number three is not clear. I've never defined them. And then the fourth one was the one that I chose. I've thought about it, but I've never formalized them. And
Mhm.
that's where I am. So, any thoughts on the responses and the percentages on those?
Yes, I have thoughts, but and here's the thing. I think I first of all, I love that everybody is in here saying, or not everybody, but the majority. No, is it even? Can we say majority? I'm not a statistics gal. Um, they talk about being clear on them and can name them easily, which I think is fantastic, and I want to celebrate that. However, what I want to say and what we want to talk about today is that being able to name them, and this is almost like setting people up, even though it's not at all, and it was never the intention with the poll. But to be able to name them is great, though it is just one piece of our core values, right? And um, understanding them, I guess I'll say. So, what I'd like to do, if you're open to it, Daniel, is I'd like to pull an activity straight from that lesson that you mentioned. So, the first lesson in our Leading Self course is called Prepare to Lead. And I call it that because I believe we all need this like first like level set right on who we are, knowing ourselves, really taking time to reflect on the things that matter to us, what's most important, and then having that guide our leadership. And so this activity from core values to core principles is what it's called. I yanked it right out of that lesson. And I'd like to take you high level through it because I think we're missing a piece. So being able to name a core value is fantastic and it is a great first step, but it's not the whole thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I love this. I think a lot of great leadership is self-awareness, and a foundation that you can build is thinking through and going through this exercise about what are your core values. Because knowing those things will allow you to think through how you're reacting to things, or
Yes.
what are the things that are driving you as a person, and then and knowing other people's core values too can help you lead them in a better way. So I think it's a great foundation, it's a great way to start. So yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, and I want to say this is something I say in the lesson when I'm facilitating it. So I'm sure you've heard me say this, but for people who haven't yet maybe been exposed to the learning or haven't watched and listened to the lesson, this is work that I didn't do it truly like formally until I was in my 40s. And so I don't want people to feel a lot of pressure. This can be done at any point. And I will say though that when you commit to putting the time in to do this, it feels different. Like I can truly, just from my own experience, I can talk about the clarity that I have, in how I move throughout work and the world and, interacting with other people because I've established my own core values, right? And I know what they mean to me. So I just really encourage people to take this I don't want to say take it seriously because I don't think people aren't taking it seriously, but to really set aside the time, I guess, to
Yes.
really reflect and walk through the lesson. And I'll say too, tomorrow in the community, so Thursday, we will I'll post the worksheets from the lesson so people can just, use those to help work through this exercise too.
I love it. And if you're just listening and you're not actually part of our community, we'll add a link at the bottom of this for you to join if you're interested.
Join us, please. We've been
Join us
waiting
on
for
this
you.
journey.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, as a level set, for anyone who's wondering, right? Core values are what you believe, they are who you are at your core. That's why they're called core values. Though I believe that they're really just words unless we translate them into behaviors. So, actions, behaviors, things that somebody else would be able to observe in you that would help them better understand what you stand for, what you value, and what you believe. So, we want to move from the words of the core value to the behavior and the action.
Hmm.
It's not as easy as it sounds. I think, right? Like, how do we actually do this? In the lesson, the activity, step one is to name or identify those core values. So we do, for those who are wondering maybe what theirs are or haven't really, even some of the people who said, thought about it, I've never formalized it, or I'm very clear on it. Great. You're already starting at step two. You've got those core values. But for those who are still wondering what they are, um, I have some prompts in the lesson and on the worksheets that help people like just ask some questions, about it helping you reflect on what might bubble to the top for you in terms of what your own core value is. I recommend in the lesson that people name 3 to 5. I think doing this exercise with one to start is a great jumping off point because it can take a long time and feel overwhelming. And the
Mm-hmm.
last thing we want to do, right, Daniel, is overwhelm anybody with this stuff. So these are our people. The majority, do we decide with the poll, who say,
Yeah,
yes, I can name them. They're very clear,
very
right? I
clear.
can name
Yeah.
them easily.
Mhm.
43% of people in our poll said that. So kudos to them. So they're already past step one, which is identifying those core values. Step two, define what it means to you. So this is where we start to draw the thread into that last piece, which is the core value. So why is this core value important to me? Asking that question, I think writing down the answer on the worksheet or typing it somewhere is really effective. You want to get it out. Why is this important to me? And then how does it show up in my life? These are things that, again, really start to add meat, right, to the words.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What do you think? I'm going to pause really quickly there. What do you think about taking, core value that you've identified and then, taking it a step further and really figuring out how it shows up for you or defining what it means to you more clearly?
Yeah, I think you have to get there because if you just come up with the core value and just kind of sit on that, it's not necessarily actionable. And I do think there is a process when you're going through these prompts of kind of unwinding your thoughts and reorganizing them into a core value or to a couple words, and then kind of building on that foundation up towards some kind of operating principle that you can then act on, and it becomes almost a guiding light in
Mm-hmm.
how you work and how you approach different things. So I think, yeah, it's that two-step process of breaking it down to a core value and then building up an operating principle from there. I think it's, yeah, super
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah. And I think I always have this real problem with like any of us can say anything, right? We can put anything on a resume. We can tell anyone anything about who we are or what we do, though. So I could say that my core value is to have integrity, though I never take accountability for mistakes that I make, or I don't do what I say I'm going to do over and over again. There's a pattern to my behavior with others. And so then so I said it's my core value. Does it make it my core value?
Yeah. And what does it mean?
What does it actually mean? So we're taking like really like the words and creating, this. I love how you said guiding light. I think that's the perfect way to say it. It's for you and others to be
Hmm.
able to work with you in a way that's really effective too.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the third step, really, and that is about like what is the action, right? Like translating your core value into that principle. What might others observe in your behavior, in the way you make decisions, or how you show up for other people, or how you approach projects? All of that can be demonstrated. Your core value can be demonstrated in those behaviors. And so, what might someone experiencing you
Mhm.
think your core values are? Right? Someone who's working with you, would they be able to know what they are?
Yeah. Do you want to share one of yours really quick
Sure.
and how you broke it down and all that?
Yeah, let me, and it's funny because I didn't write them all down. I should have, but my core values, I have three that I stick to. So I'll share the three and then and I realized something this morning that I want to share with you too about my core values that I wonder what you're going to say when I
Okay.
tell you there's like a theme. Um, so empathy, agency, and decisiveness are my three core values. I always come back to those three, or have for a while. When I told you I started doing this work
Mhm.
for myself, I do think it's important to revisit them. We evolve as people, and it's important just to stay true, and connect to what that is. The thing I realized this morning when I was thinking about this is that all three of them involve action, like some sort of action. So even empathy, right? There's a difference between empathy and kindness, if you will, or being nice, right? Empathy is understanding where someone's coming from and truly like doing something that you would need or want done for you in those moments, right? Where you're experiencing something that's extreme, some sort of, extreme emotional reaction to something. Um, Decisiveness, right? Like
Mhm.
taking what you know in that moment and making some sort of decision to move forward or not, right? But there's like action in the inaction too.
Yep.
And then what was agency, right? Like that also I think is like,
Hmm.
all right, I'm going to bet on myself. I know who I am. I know I can get this done. I'm going to do it this, I'm going to own this thing. I'm going to protect my time. I'm going to do whatever that means, right?
Yeah.
To me in those
Hmm.
moments. So isn't that, what do you think of that? Knowing
No,
me?
yeah, no, it totally tracks. Like definitely empathy. Every time that we have conversations, I always um realize as you're talking to me, you're actually putting yourself in my shoes and you're preempting what you know about me, how I may react. So you're like, hey, this is some feedback and this is, I don't want you to think it's this or this, like this is why I'm saying it, and this is why I'm giving you
Yeah.
these comments and I always appreciate that. And I think it's because you're coming from a point of empathy of, okay, I know who Daniel is. I know, his tendencies and what's priorities for him and you're approaching your just what you're saying, even the little things, you always kind of approach it that way, which I really appreciate. Where sometimes I just say what it is and it just throw it out there. And yeah, it's not, coming with empathy. So anyway,
Well, I
yeah.
can take it, but also I appreciate you saying that. I think to take us through this exercise, using empathy as the example, since we're there, this idea of, what does it mean to me? It means that I will seek to understand, right? Come
Hmm.
from this place of understanding, even if it's something that I've not experienced or that I don't actually believe I would respond in that way to something. It's really important to me that I believe other people in those moments where I'm witnessing an extreme reaction or they're sharing with me something that's not that they're struggling with. I want to believe the person. And then I think when we translate that to a principle, so that's what it means to me. That's what matters, right? And
Yeah.
that's how it shows up for me. And you just
Yeah.
shared that that's how you experience it for me. And
Hmm.
then I think even from a principle perspective too, like to take it a step further with action, it's that I don't interrupt people, right? I don't judge where they're coming from.
Hmm.
Even if it seems wild or like outsized, my kids, this comes up a lot with my kids where some reaction feels very outsized to
Yeah.
me. Do you know what
Hmm.
I mean by that? Like bigger than it should be.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, this isn't for me to decide that, right? My children are experiencing this thing and it probably is dramatic and overblown or whatever, but like it's the reality in the moment. So like it's not for me
Yeah,
to judge, it's for me to understand and then help them move past that, right? Support them
definitely.
through it. I also think so that's at work, right? Like I'm not interrupting you. I really want to understand where you're coming from. I believe you when you tell me that something is the way that it is for you.
Hmm.
I saw it last night. As you know, I flew home late last night from being on site with a client this week. And um, have you been on a plane recently and this happens to me a lot, I feel like so I was in Chicago. I was coming from Chicago back to Charlotte, both really big or busy airports, both Charlotte's not big, but it's busy, and both like a major connection hub for
Mm.
places. Like this happens to me a lot when I'm flying, where people, the flight attendants will come on and say, you've got a lot of fellow passengers who need to catch a tight connection. And last night our flight was delayed. So this just creates a ton of stress in somebody. Now I'm just going from Chicago to Charlotte. I'm sitting at the front of the plane. I'm not in first class, but like, relatively close to the front of the plane. I have a pretty easy ride
Hmm.
over to Charlotte. I could just get off the plane and get in my car, right, and drive home. And I know that there are people who are completely stressed
Mm.
about having to make a connection. I know what that feels like because I've been there. And I watched, so they asked people who didn't have a connection to stay put, when we got to the gate so people could race through. And I watched these people around me
No one
not
does
do
that.
that for them. And
No
it's
one
like,
ever does that.
well, but they should, right? Like to me, that
Yeah.
really bothered me because I told the two gentlemen I was on the aisle. I'm usually always on the aisle if I can help it. And I said to them both, I said, because they didn't raise their, I knew that they were done in Charlotte too, right? So,
Hmm.
and I said, I'm going to take a beat. I'm going to wait here so people can get through it. These people are like, you could see them trying to come through. And then I just see people just standing up and blocking them, so they
Mm.
can't get through. And I just think there's a lack of empathy there of like how stressful that is.
Yep.
It was 8:15 at night. So like what other option, if these people don't make these flights,
Oh yeah, they're staying the night
they're
probably.
staying the night in an airport or a stupid airport hotel or something. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent, but I just think like those people showed me that empathy is not their core value,
Mm. Yep.
right? Like,
Yep. Yep. And
I
that's
don't know.
yeah, it's not very many people's core value, especially at the airport. I'll just say that.
I mean, and it
Yeah.
should be. It should be.
Hmm.
I don't know. It should be.
Yeah. No,
Anyway,
I agree.
does that help like translate that, like this idea of a value um into action, like into a principle that people could observe and understand in you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll add before we close out just kind of how I approached it and
Oh,
how I
please.
used AI to help me think through it. Because I do this exercise I think is phenomenal for just you to understand yourself a little more, which I think everyone could use a little bit of that
That's right.
self-awareness.
Yes.
But I use this as an opportunity because I am experimenting with different LLMs now. I've been a ChatGPT person for since it started, and I wanted to check out Claude from Anthropic. So I started using the prompts and I gave it to AI and said, "Hey, let's work together to figure out my core values. Let's start with this." And I just started spewing kind of my thoughts on what I thought the core value was. And
Cool.
apparently I was way off. But
Oh,
well, it said this is not a core value. This is more of a behavior. But I started with work ethic because that's
got
just
it.
something
Okay.
that has always been part of me. And I explained, I'm always one of the hardest working people.
Yes.
I always think like I can outperform people by just hard work. And I grew up this way, just being raised by a tiger mom, all that kind of stuff.
That's
Yeah.
another
Yeah,
podcast
that's a
though.
whole other podcast. And it was interesting to see. So maybe because ChatGPT knows me so well, because I've used it so long, it just gave me an answer and said, "Hey, this is
Mm,
more of a behavior. This is what I think your core values are," and excellence was one of them. When I went to Claude, and I've given Claude my master prompt, so it knows me and it knows everything about my preferences and all that kind of stuff. But Claude was a little different. It didn't just give me an answer. It started asking me questions and
mm,
making me think. And
mm,
it's very interesting that Claude was more of a thinking partner approach. Um, and we went through multiple iterations and dialogue back and forth. And we ended up kind of at the same place that ChatGPT gave me, which was great. Um, but it's just interesting that I think you have to go on the journey of thinking it through and dialoguing it or not, having a conversation with the AI or with someone to kind of
the
think through these
reflection.
things. Yeah, the reflection point. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was trying to say. Like it was very interesting to see how Claude approached it versus ChatGPT. But yeah, we kind of ended up in the same place, but it was yeah, I just love the experience with Claude. It really was a thought partner approach versus
Mm.
just question answer. Yeah.
I love that for you. And that example is so cool. I mean, I really love that both LLMs told you, hey, work ethic is a behavior, because we are making that distinction today, aren't we,
Hmm.
between a core value and between that behavior that supports that. So this idea of excellence is that's what you landed on. And I would
Yeah.
say, as someone who works with you, that's absolutely what I see in you and how you work. So,
Yeah.
and it shows up in your work ethic.
Right. And it was interesting because Claude did take me the step further into kind of more operating principles and kind of phrases that would kind of capture what we were trying to talk about. Because I thought excellence was good, but I was a little afraid of, I don't want to be a perfectionist either. coming out in an operating principle, how can we work through something that, we've talked about, done is better than perfect. That's
Yes.
something that I
Always.
think
Uh-huh.
every startup is going through. Like you just got to get stuff out there. And the way that Clyde sort of phrased it, which I really liked, was like you have high standards, but you have a healthy pace of getting work done.
Ooh, okay.
So like it was just more thought to get to that. And I like that a lot better than just excellence. It's, high standards, healthy
Yes.
pace, or deliberate pace. It came to a better phrase of capturing what I was trying to get to. So yeah, I think using AI, feed it the prompts. If you're in the community,
We can
take
share right. We can
yeah,
share
we'll
the
share the
credit.
prompts.
Yeah.
Feed it into AI. Maybe prompt the AI to say like, take me on a journey with you. Like, let's talk about
Do
this. Be a
that.
thinking partner versus just giving me an answer. I think you'll get a lot more out of it for sure.
Well, no question, because I mean, obviously the organic nuts and bolts of the worksheets, right, is like literally a pencil, going through exactly what you did here. But that I'm not opposed to this at all. I think it's so important to do the reflection, to have the dialogue, even if it is with an LLM. And I think just the fact that, and it's a greater commentary, isn't it, on AI itself? Like you could get the answer from
Mhm.
ChatGPT, though is there really, where's the value in that, right?
Right.
Whereas you really got the sense of greater sense of who you are that you really always knew, but now you have words for it and you have behaviors for it.
Yep.
I think that's really cool. Do
Yeah.
you feel like a sense, like a greater sense of like, oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel a lot more grounded. It tracks with how I think I work and how I think. So it was a good activity. So I
oh
really,
my
yeah.
gosh, you'll have to come up, do it more times, like because you
Yeah.
have
I
to
have to
put
do
it
it three
into
more
your
times
values.
because you
Yeah,
want three core values.
three core values. I think three is a good number to
Yeah.
sit on.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
agree.
Oh, that's fun. Thank you for sharing that. I think people will really like that.
Yeah. So for those in the community, we will post those prompts for you and definitely check out Claude.
Oh,
Been
Claude, I'm
very,
going
yeah,
to. This is like the second or third time you've told me that you prefer Claude, so I'm gonna have to give it a try.
yeah. It's different. You can
Uh-huh.
see I don't want to say the soul, but the different design that their founders have infused into these different LLMs is very interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I like it.
Is that getting too philosophical?
No, I no, you know what? My brain went a different place that I
AI.
don't think I want to share. Like when I was
Yeah.
thinking about that, I was like just thinking like, oh, they're really coming for us. Like if they're supposed to infuse like the human element.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, the terminology that they use for LLMs is like very human adjacent, or actually it defines humans in a lot of ways, like the brain, the soul, the personality, all that. But that's another podcast. We'll talk
That's
about that
another
next time.
day.
All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. For those in the community, can't wait to circle back with you guys on your core
Mhm.
values, and we'll see you guys all next week.
See ya.
All right, bye.
Bye.